He was like, I love your music. I love the song, Fuck Up the Friendship. I want to give you like money to invest in it. I feel like it could be big. And I was like, great, let's go. And he like wired me $100,000. I'm going to get a job at this like Pilates studio and just like work on music. Enough of the jobs. I can't have a corporate job. Like, I'm pursuing music full time now. I'm done. It's not working out. Got fired. So I was like, I'm just going to sit on my ass at home and work on my music career because this isn't in my stars. It became like a proper pop radio hit, which was insane to me. And at one point it was streaming like 2.5 million streams a day.
Wow.
And I did like my first EP here, which is kind of like full circle and funny because like, why would I come to London to make music? I was living in LA. That is so unnecessary.
Where do I begin with Leah Kate? Probably the most viral artist we've had on the show in a minute. From 10 Things I Hate About You to Superover, we talked about everything. And it was really good to understand the businesswoman behind the art and how she got to where she is. She's in the midst of her sold-out tour in the UK right now, and she stopped by to chat to me on Upgrade Sounds. What is your earliest memory when it comes to music?
My earliest memory when it comes to music was being in the studio with my younger brother, and he made this beat, and I was like, okay, let me just hop on the mic really quick and see what comes out. This was like the first song I ever made. I was like 13 or something, and I just freestyled this whole song, and I was like, oh, that was like kind of easy. It just like came naturally, and I remember being like, oh, maybe I can like write a song. And we wrote this song called After Party, and it was like our first song ever. My dad still doesn't shut up about it. He still wants me to put it out as a single today. So that is my like earliest real music memory in terms of like music creation. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess before that, was songwriting always natural to you? Did it just come to you, you know, naturally?
I didn't know I could like really write until that moment. I loved music and I loved singing and like performing, and I was, you know, doing musicals and all this stuff, but I remember that moment being like, oh, I like learned that I had like a skill side. I was like, okay, I just freestyled like a 3-minute song. I was like, okay, if I can do that, then I can like sit down and actually craft something. And that, yeah, I don't think I really realized it until that moment, because I didn't think I'd be able to like make a career out of like making songs. I just loved music and I loved to sing and dance and do all that. But I think, yeah, at that moment I was like, oh, maybe I can write songs. Let me try this.
So then take me on that journey. Take me from writing After Party at 13 years old to the superstar I have sitting in front of me. How does that materialize?
It was definitely a really long journey to where I'm at.
You know, then music became like my hobby. My brother and I would make songs together all the time. And I took voice lessons, which I remember I had so much anxiety growing up. And when I get in my voice class, I felt this like ease and just like, it was almost like therapeutical. I just loved to sing, and I would like sing my favorite songs, and it was so fun for me. But yeah, so music was always just a hobby. Like it was what I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to go about it. I just made the songs and they lived on my computer, but I had thousands of songs. It was all I really did. And my family always was like, you make music, great, but like you need to get a job, and like, you know, if like music is a hobby, it's amazing, keep doing it, but like it's not like a real like career. And like my dad actually works in radio, but no one in my family had like music connections or anything. Like I thought I needed like a record label at the time. I was just like, this was pre-TikTok. There was really no way to like have a hit song at the time without having a label backing you. And I moved to New York because, like, my family was very much like, you're not doing music, get a job. So I moved to New York because I was like, okay, I can go there and have this dumb job and go to Brooklyn in the studio and, like, work on my songs and not have to hear from my family about, like, what I'm doing with my life. And I was, you know, putting out my songs, and at the time was getting some small wins, like New Music Friday and, like, some syncs, which were huge deals to me at the time. And
what syncs were there?
God, this one, like, The Hills on MTV, like, the bold type, just random shit was happening. And I was like, okay, like, maybe this can be something. And I got fired from all of my 3 jobs that I had there. So finally I was like, shit, I have to leave New York. I put out my first, like, independent EP, but I was like, I have to go home because I can't live in New York and be, like, a struggling songwriter here. And clearly the jobs aren't working. Like, the jobs weren't working at all. So I moved home. And I wrote this song, Fuck Up the Friendship. And I remember I was like, I feel like this has something. Like, I really liked it. I had a good feeling about it. And I spent all summer just messaging creators in the pandemic, which when the pandemic hit, I was like, it's over. I'm never going to have a music career now because I can't tour. I can't do anything. Right. So I spent all summer, like, DMing creators, being like, please use my sound. Like, I posted it every day. I was like, this will blow up. And then one day it literally popped off. I remember my first video got, like, 100,000 views, and I was like, hey guys, like, what is this? Like, I have 100,000 views on my video. Like, I made like 30 videos about actually getting a viral video. And this guy, Alexis Ohanian, reached out to me, who, like, had founded Reddit, and he's married to Serena Williams, and he's a big, like, investor. He's like, I love your music. I love the song Fuck Up the Friendship. I want to give you, like, money to invest in it. I feel like it could be big. And I was like, great, like, let's go. And he, like, wired me $100,000. Okay. And I was like, I'm going to pop this off. And I remember just, like, I hired this marketing company, and it was already going viral, but I wanted to, like, make it bigger. And so I, like, hired creators to, like, post with the sound, and it just exploded. And all of a sudden my, like, independent song on DistroKid was getting, like, 200,000 streams a day, which at the time was really massive. And I was super excited. And I was like, look, Dad, like, I have a song going viral. Like, people like my music. I'm not, like, lying. Yeah. So then I hit up Alexis after that, and I was like, okay, we did this. Like, he made his money back. The song popped off. I was like, I wrote another EP. Do you want to invest in me? Like, you know, so we did it again. And one song on there exploded again, Fuck You Anthem. 1 million videos on TikTok. We were 2 for 2 at this point. And I was like, okay, Alexis, I am going to go on tour with Maddison Beer. I have an album. At the time it was called Kiss the Boys and Make Them Cry. That changed. And I was like, I need $500,000, and I'm going to go on this tour, and I'm going to put out an album, and I'm going to make music videos, and I don't need a label. Let's just do this, like, us. Because labels at that time were approaching me. And the first single off the album was 10 Things I Hate About You. And that song went crazy. Yeah. And then kind of everything, like, took off from there. Wow. Yeah, that's kind of the long story.
So there's so much to unpick here, which, you know, I think there's some incredible, you know, stories in that odyssey. So you had 3 jobs at once in New York.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not 3 at a time, but 3 separate jobs. Sure. Yeah, I worked at this app, which was amazing because I didn't have to go in the office. I just had to sell it, which I'm, like, really good at selling things. I'm pretty convincing. So I would just sell it in my sleep. And I would go to the studio during the day, but they would always be like, this girl has, like, concerts every Friday. I had some random playing in the Hamptons at the Soho House. Like, I was like, come to my show, guys. Every Friday, new songs coming out. So they knew where my head was obviously at, and they were like, definitely didn't love that. Sure. And then I had, like, one little mess up, and they fired me, which was such a blessing in disguise because I was very comfortable, like, living in New York in my nice apartment, like, with my friends, partying, having a job that, like, paid a lot. I was making $0 off of music at the time. But also, like, I could be in the studio during the day because it was a remote job. Sure. So I would, like, go to the studio, and, like, a lot of my work could be done at night. So that, yeah, I got fired from literally every job. I had a job before that working at, like, I was assisting this person, not going to say who, and the way I got fired was so crazy. I hated the job so much that it inspired my dad, who's, like, a businessman. Sure. runs a company, like is not a screenwriter, but my dad was so inspired that he wrote a screenplay about my experience working for this person, kind of like Devil Wears Prada-ish. And I was like, sure, Dad, I'll read it. Like, my dad will just get these random hobbies sometimes, and like one day it's golfing, one day it's surfing, then it's screenwriting. I'm like, okay, I'll read your script, sure. And they found it in my desk, and they thought I was writing a movie. It was so clearly like inspired by my experience. And they found it and fired me. So then I had to get the next job. And then they found it and fired me. And then I moved back to LA. I was like, I'm going to get a job at this like Pilates studio and just like work on music. Enough of the jobs. I can't have a corporate job. Like, I'm pursuing music full time now. I'm done. It's not working out. Got fired. So I was like, I'm just going to sit on my ass at home and work on my music career because this isn't in my stars to work for somebody else.
What a real odyssey. I guess, you know, being a creative and having to, you know, do other things to facilitate that dream, it can be like, you can just tell, you know, like every minute that you're spending working on somebody else's dream is a minute you're not spending working on your own. So I guess you could kind of tell that you wanted to just be in music that whole time, right? For
sure. Oh, 100%. But I was so scared because my family didn't think it was like a real thing. My dad, I remember when I came home, I was like, I'm getting lunch with your grandma today. Like, what are you doing going to the studio? Like, when I was just like doing music full time, it was such a big question mark for everyone. Mm-hmm. They were like, what does that even mean? Because there's a lot of like musicians in my family and stuff, but like, you know, I don't know. It wasn't real to anyone until I really started, like, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's true. And nothing happened for me until I just quit all the bullshit on the side that was taking up my time. And, yeah.
And then, you know, it sounds like you've got supportive parents, but also parents that, to a degree, is it fair to say they wanted to push you? They wanted to see you, you know, succeed. So they were very, like, hyper vigilant as to the fact that, you know, music is a hard game.
Yeah, like, I have the most supportive parents ever. They actually flew from LA to Manchester today to be at the show. No way. They're so supportive. Oh my God. I just think like it's such a hard industry to break into, and my dad is like realistic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he was so supportive. Like, yes, he helped me in so many ways. You know, I was like, Dad, I need someone to like help me pay these producer fees. When I had like my first EP I ever made, I didn't have a label at the time, and I was like, what, there's producer fees? Like, just all these things, like album art, like it all, you know. So he was so supportive and helpful in the beginning, even though he was like, you need to work, you need to have a real job. Like, I think maybe somewhere deep down no one really thought it would become a real job for me, like, which it is now. As much as they wanted to believe it would, I don't think they did. Mm-hmm. But now they're so supportive. I mean, they flew here yesterday from LA, so they're very proud now. But it was, you know, music is really tough to break into, and it's so hard. It's still so hard, but I definitely made a lot of progress since, you know, just making beats in my bedroom.
You say it's still so hard, but, you know, from the outside looking in, it looks like you're flying. So, you know, I'm intrigued to know what are some of the challenges that you're currently facing.
It's just, I think it's hard sometimes coming off of such a big song, because then any song that's not as
10 things, right?
Yeah. Having such a big moment like that, anything after that like feels smaller. You know, like that song was like top 10 at radio and went crazy. And so, like, first day, 1 million streams, which is so crazy that ever happened. So sometimes it can feel like, oh, it's not as big as that. But then most of the time, I'm like, I'm crushing it. I'm so lucky to do this. I feel so lucky to just be in Europe right now, like, touring like that. If you asked me 10 years ago, I mean, I like flew to London to like sing a song in a cafe, and I thought that was a big deal. So sometimes I just have to like check myself and be like, whoa, what I'm doing is so cool, and I am so lucky and grateful. But sometimes, you know, it can get hard. Like, if a TikTok flops, I'm like, cool, that sucks. But then I'm like, I'm really lucky, and I'm so grateful to be in the situation I'm in. So I try not to get too down on myself. But I'm usually not. I'm usually pretty grateful, and yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I want to do. So that's sick.
Let's talk about 10 things. Like you say, obviously, you know, a huge moment. Why don't you take me through the journey on how that song spawned and how it became such a massive phenomenon?
I was in bed on a Sunday, hungover as fuck. Like, I literally couldn't move. And I had put out a song like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, that song flopped, so I'm gonna tease my new one that I'm so excited about, which was 10 Things. And I like put up the video on TikTok, and within a day it got 7 million views, and the demand for it was insane. I called my manager. I was like, hey, I'm uploading it to DistroKid right now. I'm going to put it out next week. Anyway, so the manager was like, I don't know if you should put that out. You just put out a song last week. We're going to cannibalize that release. And we got into like an argument about it. And I was like, I'm very sorry. I'm putting it out. And we finally, ended up agreeing. She was like, okay, do what you want. And I put it out, and it just immediately, it was like really the craziest thing ever. It streamed like I've never seen before. And it just, I ended up signing to a record label at the time because I was touring with Maddison Beer, and I could not focus on like marketing it. I felt like I needed an army, a radio team, this, that, I wanted to do a big video, all these things. So I ended up signing to a label, and it just went to, it became like a proper pop radio hit, which was insane to me. And at one point it was streaming like 2.5 million streams a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was going crazy. Like, I was like, oh my God, like all these people and celebrities were using the sound, and I was getting the craziest DMs, and just seeing everyone love the song was just so crazy. And I was touring with Maddison Beer, and every night I sung it would get louder and louder and louder. And like by the end, it was like the crowds were screaming every single lyric, and I was just like an opener. So I was like, what the fuck? This is insane. And the crowd just kept getting louder and louder every night, and I was like, whoa. And then I like told my agent, I was like, I feel like there's something really good happening in Europe. Like, they seem to be really liking my music here. And so we planned my own UK tour for a few months after, and like the whole thing sold out. And I just like I love touring in Europe. Yeah. I feel like it all started here. And
you feel like an honorary Brit to us.
Oh my God, thank you. I feel like an honorary Brit, honestly. Like, these shows in the UK are just insane, sold out, wild. The fans, they're so amazing. Some of the best shows I've ever had. So I love the UK.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really feel like it all started here. And even when I like worked at my old job, I didn't know anyone, like aside from my brother, I knew 0 producers in LA. Which is funny because that's where most of the like creatives are. So I'd fly to London because I found these 2 producers in London who were down to work with me. I was a nobody. I didn't have one song out, so not a lot of people were down. But found these 2 guys in London who were so down to work with me. And I did like my first EP here, which is kind of like full circle and funny because like, why would I come to London to make music? I was living in LA. That is so unnecessary. I could have found like a producer. My brother was like in college, so I was like, okay, he's like gone, like I need to find like a producer, and I did it all here.
Amazing.
So it's kind of full circle.
Wow.
I just belong here in the UK. Yeah.
Let's talk about Superover. Incredible record.
Thank you.
I definitely think it's one of those that will to an extent be timeless in terms of, teenagers that are growing up with it today will still be listening to it tomorrow. What was the writing process for that record like?
I went to Hawaii with some friends, was really hung up on a specific person, and we pretty much wrote like a lot of the album there, just in a studio for like 10 days. It was so much fun. When we wrote Superover, we got in the studio that day, and I was like, guys, what do you think about a song called Superover? I think like my producer had said something like super, like we were just floating around like the words. It was like Superover, and I was like, yes, that's genius. Let's write a song called Superover. And I remember, like, some other people in the room that day were like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. And I was like, okay, fuck it, let's, like, move on to the next song. And then we, like, wrote 2 other songs that day. And they were cool, but at 9 p.m. I was like, let's go back to that Superover idea. And my producer made the beat really quick, and we wrote it in 15 minutes. And then, of course, it becomes like the Superover tour, the album, everything, and that song almost didn't happen. But there was just something in the back of my mind all day that kept bringing me back to Superover. And I just feel like it's the most, as you know, I love a breakup anthem, and there's no better way to say we're over than we're super over. So I was like, it really hit home for me. And we wrote it in 15 minutes, and it became everything. And it was pretty crazy. So, yeah.
You and Lolo, who we've had on previously, both loved a breakup anthem. Are we ever going to get you two on a breakup anthem together?
So funny. She actually asked me to be on one this morning. So maybe, you never know. I haven't listened to it yet because I've been so busy, but she literally did text me this morning saying that. So,
wow.
To be determined. We'll see.
Absolutely. I know you have to run, so I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, tell me how you're feeling ahead of tonight. You know, you've got a big headline in Manchester, where we are right now. It's great to have you here. Tell me how you're feeling.
So excited. Manchester is like the craziest crowd usually, and it's sold out. So this is my biggest show of actually my life tonight.
Wow.
650 people. It's huge.
All the very best to you. Can't wait to see you in London.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.